What is up, everybody? It is me, Sketch AV, and we are here for week 1 of Power Rankings. Finally here for week 1 of Power Rankings, I should actually point out. Because for those of you who don't know, we have gone on a struggle and a half trying to get this video made for you guys. But we finally figured everything out, and I am excited to be one of the analysts for the ABL. And of course, I'm not alone. I'm joined with co-host Tsumami.
Oh my gosh, such a struggle. Such a struggle.
And disclaimer, because we have struggled so much, like originally we tried to record this like days ago, so the battles aren't really fresh in my mind, and I don't really think they are in Tsumami's either. So if it takes me a second to like figure out what I'm talking about, like if I'm looking at my notes and I'm trying to like think of specific examples, that is the reason why. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the very first person on the list. I guess we're gonna be working our way up from last to first, so we'll start at the bottom with 12. And
keep in mind, this is week 1.
Yeah, this is week 1, so I mean, if you're at the bottom, there's definitely a chance for you to make it to the top, and if you're at the top, you gotta stay on your guard, because you can work your way to the bottom, so just look out for that. And as you guys can see, we have 2 different lists. They are quite different in certain areas. But for the most part, like, they're relatively the same. We just disagreed in certain areas, and we'll talk about our reasoning as to why people fall into certain places for us. But falling in on Tsumami's list at number 12 is the Portland Porygons. And I'll let you talk about them first, since it's your list.
Alright. So, number 12, I have Apollo and the Portland Porygons. Now, I think he played his best with the team he brought. However, I have a lot of problems with his prep. He had this idea of, I'm gonna just toxic stall him, but he could have fleshed it out more than he did. For starters, he had no removal, and that's a problem because like half your team learns Defog, Mew, Swellow, and Mega Scizor, and 2 of them take 25% from Stealth Rocks. Not to mention you were completely destroyed by a layer of Toxic Spikes. And the way you built your team, you would have required a lot of switching, and whether it's entry damage like Stealth Rocks or residual damage like the poison, you weren't ready for the entry hazards. And not only that, I think Toxic was a really weird choice on Swellow, because you're already taking 6% from Flame Orb because you were running Facade, and the thing is very frail, so not many hits. It didn't take many hits to take it out. I think Roserade would have been a much better spot. It had much better synergy. It would have absorbed the spikes. It would have got up his own, and it would have dealt with Clefable, which was a big wall for your team. What about you, Sketch?
I completely agree. Or do you have more to say?
No, I was at.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was basically exactly what I said in my notes. You hit on a couple points that I didn't really think about, like bringing the Roserade definitely would have been a smart bring. But yeah, for the life of me, I don't understand why 3 Defoggers were brought to battle and none of them carried Defog this week, considering he definitely has hazard setters. Clefable can carry Stealth Rocks, as you found out the hard way. Dragon can carry Toxic Spikes, and it was really only 1 layer, but even that 1 layer just kept consistent pressure on anything that was staying in the battlefield that week. And like, I understand that that Mega Slowbro doesn't appreciate Toxic at all. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think he brought Toxic on 3 different mons this week.
At least.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I get it, because like Toxic is a direct counter to Mega Slowbro, but he has one of the best clerics in the game in Clefable. So it wasn't really going to do too much if he had a Heal Bell Clefable just hanging out in the back. Overall, Shiv's team is like really bulky / offensive, and I just don't think that you brought the right sets to take it down. I actually really love his team. I think that he can use his team really well moving forward. Just this week, it wasn't really like the best start to the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Like for me, Portland Porygons fell at number 10, and that's just because I'm basing my list on who I see as like the biggest threats in the league. And based on his draft, I still think that he's a huge threat. Like, I don't want to go up against his team. He just has to look for more effective ways to prep for his opponents with the team that he has.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what he'll bring in the future weeks.
Yeah, most definitely.
What about your number?
Yeah, moving to my number 12. I have Kurt and the LA Dugtrios. And yeah, by the way, I just want to mention another disclaimer. If at any point I offend any of you with like what I say about your sets or anything, like that's not what this is about, and I will issue a formal apology. I'm not trying to like call anybody out with this. And you'll see when I get to my team, I'm going to roast myself. Like I have the most notes about myself, but yeah, this is just for moving forward, like maybe things that you could try out in the future for us all to improve. So like somebody had to fall at the bottom this week, and I'm not trying to like call out Kurt or call out Apollo since they're kind of towards the bottom. But one thing that I noticed was that if he had ran 4 EVs, like just put 4 EVs into his Swampert speed, it would have let him win the speed tie with the Jellicent, but instead it was able to recover up. And I'm trying to remember the exact situation, because like I said, it's been a couple days since I watched the battle. But from what I remember, he had the Jellicent down to like next to no health left, and the Swampert came in and was about to be able to finish it up. Instead, Jellicent won the speed tie and was able to recover up. So I mean, it might just be it might be smart to just look out for the speed tiers and see what you can invest to actually avoid situations like that. Because I believe the Jellicent went on to do something. It's been a while since I watched it, but like it did something that was pretty devastating from what I remember. The Zoroark, I actually really love the idea of Zoroark being your Z user. I think that's really threatening because you can just get hit with a Z move at any point and you're not expecting it. One piece of advice I would say with that is make sure that you're disguising the Zoroark that isn't like, or as something that isn't weak to rocks or like something that resists rocks. Because this week you brought it disguised as Tornadus and it switched into rocks and took the normal 12%. So I don't know if your opponent caught onto that. I know when I was watching the replay again, that was like the first thing that I noticed when it came in. I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be Zoroark, or else it would have taken 25. So just keep an eye out for that. Like maybe disguising it as Scizor would have been a better option this week. I like the Will-O-Wisp and Hex on Rotom Freeze. I just would have liked to see Rotom used a little bit more aggressively, because it took down a lot of your opponent's team this week in Nidoqueen, Aerodactyl, Jellicent, Serena, Latias, and Xatu. Unfortunately, it wasn't really used as effectively as I think it could have been. And it just seemed like overall Kurt kind of got like outmatched in this week, and that's not necessarily his fault. It was a tough week for him. Like, he had a really tough opponent. I don't really have too much else to say about why he lost, but those are just some of the notes that I had as to what he could do, perhaps moving forward to turn things around.
So, unlike you, I actually have a lot to say about Kurt. For starters, you have an amazing regenerator core in Tangrowth and Tornadus Therian, and I wanted to see you use more. Twice you should have either stayed in or gone into Tangrowth. First against Jellicent, where you switched out into Zoroark and it cost you, and he went down. And then you had Tangrowth in against Aerodactyl, and while yeah you feared an an Aerial Ace or a Fire Fang, all that damage actually could have been recovered by a Giga Drain and Regenerator. And Stealth Rocks I think could have been a lot bigger in this game than you made them. You should have gone for them turn 1. Sure, he may have brought in Serena right away, but then he wouldn't have U-turned, he would have Rapid Spin, giving him less momentum and you a chance to switch or to get an Ice Punch off. I really like the Will-O-Wisp Rotom as Sketch said, and at the end you did suffer an unfortunate miss, but all it would have done is take out Nidoqueen. He would have cleaned up anyways, and then the Hurricane was just kinda, yeah, that was insult to injury. One thing I will say about your like play style is that you scared yourself. You made a mispredict going for Ice Punch against Jellicent, and from there I didn't see you make any more predictions. You played very timid. Want to move on?
Yeah. So I guess moving forward on my list, next would be the Charlotte Beedrills, coached by Jay. And this is actually I think this is probably the biggest difference in where we rank somebody, because I have him down at 11, Tsumami has him at 8. I'll go ahead and talk about why I have him low. Honestly, I just don't think that either person in this match was prepared well enough to take down the bulk of the other side. Like, if you guys haven't seen this match, go check it out and you'll see why I'm saying this. This was like, I believe, near 200 turn match, and it was just a stall fest on both sides.
It was 124 turns?
It was 104. I thought it was like closer to 200. I don't know. It felt like 200. But
Wait, can I just share a quick statistic?
yes.
I did the math. You wished past a total of 2,665 health.
Oh my god. That is insane. Yeah, Jay was rocking out with Gligar, Celesteela, Stoutland, Mega Audino, Lycanroc, and Alolan Muck. And we'll get to what his opponent brought a little bit later. Actually, no, I'll tell you right now. He had Tapu Fini, Landorus, Umbreon, Hitmonlee, Kyurem, and Cresselia. And it was just a battle of who can pass the most wishes and slowly whittle down the other team long enough. And eventually, I think the reason why Jay ended up losing this game is because he brought stall, but he wasn't playing in a stall mindset. That being said, like I believe that he just kind of got impatient with his plays, as we see with the Lycanroc. Like the way he used Lycanroc this week made no sense to me. He switched it in while Tapu Fini was out, which was already like dangerous enough, but luckily Tapu Fini wasn't going for an attack on that turn, and he was able to switch out. Later in the game, he has Lycanroc against Tapu Fini again, and instead of switching out, or even attacking, even if he attacked, that would have made a little bit of sense, but I don't know, like instead of doing that, he actually just Swords Danced and got one-shot by the Tapu Fini. So I mean, it was just kind of like small plays and rather large plays like that. Like I believe sacking Lycanroc was really unnecessary, and just in the long run, his opponent ended up outplaying him for the stall mindset. And if you're gonna have a stally team, you have to be able to use a stally team without getting impatient. Honestly, like I said, like, I don't really think either team was prepped well enough to take on each other's stall. I think that snatch on Mega Audino was really actually pretty cool. You were able to see that he actually stole a couple wishes from the Umbreon. I think 2 or 3 times he stole wishes, which was really nice. I think rather than running Frustration, it would have been nice to see you run Dazzling Gleam on Audino just so that you could have fairy coverage and take down the Umbreon. That being his main cleric, of course, because without that, the Umbreon was able to just come in and take advantage of your Audino being out, seeing that it couldn't do anything to it, and that just really hurt your team, having a bulky mon like Umbreon just keep coming in and pass wishes, and ultimately I think that's what cost you the game. I don't have too many other notes besides that. There's not really too much point in recommending what to do moving forward, because if you guys haven't heard, Jay actually has left the league and was taken over by Metronome, aka Daddy Easy. I feel uncomfortable saying that name, but yeah, he is taking over. He did change the team up a little bit, so we'll see what he brings to the table moving forward in future weeks.
For sure. Yeah, no, I don't have much to say about Jay either. I do want to say Lycanroc was a bad bring this week, especially turn 61. You went for SD with Lycanroc way too soon, and it ended up just going down.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was like necessarily a bad bring. I mean, I guess, yeah, there were better things that he could have brought, but it could have done some damage if he had used it properly. I mean, that wasn't even the first time that he tried that, because he did switch it in while Tapu Fini was out and very likely could have scalded. He got away from that and tried to Swords Dance on it, which, I don't know. It could have put in some work that week, but it wasn't used right.
Yeah. But the reason I have Jay at 8 is because I just think he played with the stall really well. He had a few misplays and it cost him the game, but I do think he played really well. Like Snatch Audino was super cool. I thought that was a great bring.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't have much left to say.
Alright, moving forward, at your number 10 and my number 9, we have iRebel and the Toronto Staraptors. And
correct.
If you want, you can talk about him first. This was your match, actually, wasn't it?
This was my match, yes.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So, I think you prepped fantastic. I think Quagsire was a great wall, and its one weakness, Grass, was covered by Sap Sipper Drampa, and no one knows what Drampa does, so that was a big surprise. That was really cool. I brought Charizard Y, and as such you fought really hard to keep rocks up, and one way you did that was every time I brought an Excadrill, who's my spinner, you switched into Ferrothorn, who got Iron Barb's damage off, and that was super cool. But however, the way you did play so heavily into rocks, I do think that you played too much defensive and not enough offensive. A few other misplays, you switched into Zapdos on my Venusaur, even though you had Cobalion, who was immune to Sludge Bomb, and even had Savage Spin Out as a Z move, which would have taken me out. Taunt Granbull stopped Rest on my Diancie, and your big thing, and I don't want to knock you too hard because you did have to go do something, but you brought in Cobalion against Tailwind Excadrill, which did make it go down. And you did say, oh, you missed it, you had to go for 10 minutes, but I do think that's something you should have checked. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. I actually have this in my notes. This is the biggest thing for me, was that his team didn't really have many, or not that his team doesn't have, but he didn't bring many offensive threats this week. You could say Cobalion and Zapdos can be used offensively. I don't actually know what the spread on the Zapdos was this week, but the Cobalion with the Z move was definitely his main offensive potential. Granbull definitely hits hard, but it doesn't really have the speed to be a huge offensive threat in this match. For those of you who don't know, he also brought Ferrothorn, Drampa, Quagsire, like Tsumami mentioned earlier.
Many walls.
Yeah. I definitely think that the Quagsire and Drampa pairing was really cool to see, like he said, because I honestly didn't know that Drampa carried Sap Sipper either.
No one
so
knows
that kind of caught me off guard. Yeah, Drampa was played beautifully. Unfortunately, it didn't get to do too much on offense, but it was a really threatening wall, taking a lot of the Sun Boosted Flamethrowers from the Zard Y. I don't really understand why Savage Spin Out was brought this week. I mean, like, it could have hit hard, but it wouldn't have really hit much harder than like something else like Corkscrew Crash or like something that could have been Stab. I don't know. I mean, you were saying that it could have taken down your Venusaur, and it might have with like if you didn't have a lot of defense invested in it, but it was only a neutral hit. And looking at your team, the only thing that it really hit hard was the Slowbro, which probably would have survived the hit, I think, after looking at the calcs. Like, I think I calced it, and it does live the hit, and you could just regenerate it back after a switch out. If you wanted to hit the Slowbro hard, I think that hitting it on the special side would have been nice with like a Z Volt switch. That could have done a lot of damage. I think it would have done more damage and had more coverage for the team, such as the Zard Y could have hit for super effective damage as well. But yeah, ultimately I just think that it was a lack of offensive threats that had him lose this game. There were a couple of unfortunate hacks towards the end, but I think that overall you were prepped more for the week, like prepped better for his team, and it was just too many walls, in my opinion, for this week.
Yeah.
But I think that he has a really threatening draft, and I definitely think that he's going to be able to use it well moving forward, and I look forward to seeing that.
Kurt said it in the draft analysis, and it's right. You do have one of the strongest teams out there. Not to spoil week 2, but he may have gotten the 6-0 on honor. But yeah.
yeah, we're definitely not recording this after week 2 matches happen. Not at all.
So number 9.
Yeah, moving forward, number 9 is the LA Raichargers on Tsumami's list. And I actually forget where I have them placed. I know they're at least... Yeah, actually, I have them at number 7. I remember that. And that is coached by Honored.
I'm going to put that there now. You got a 1-0, and you brought it back close, but I have a lot of problems with the way you played. For starters, you could have preserved your team a lot better. You kept Venusaur in the back well, but I would have liked to see like Shed Shell on Coco, you know, he had Dugtrio, like Glycopod take a hit from Galvantula, and you had no removal. You and who was it? King both brought Sticky Webs, but King had Rapid Spin, and you had no way to get rid of yours. So immediately you were at a big disadvantage in speed. You didn't have Bullet Punch on Lucario, which was a way better priority. It was Stab and it hit Gardevoir a lot harder because you had nothing for Gardevoir, especially when you lost a third of your speed. It was just able to keep coming in and hitting you hard. And while Protect was cool on Glycopod, and you ran a lot of great coverage moves, you were really bulky and that saved your differential, but a lot of that bulk could have been used for damage purposes. And at the very end, you missed Sleep Powder, which it was bad luck. But I don't think you could have brought it back, just because it would have taken more hacks on your end. You would have needed to switch out, bring in Manaphy, sub, Tail Glow, and then attack, and then live a hit from Gardevoir. So I don't think it could have gotten any closer than it was, but you did bring it back close, which earned you number 9. What about you, Sketch?
Yeah, I had a lot of similar notes. When I was deciding where Honor fell on the list, I did put him at 7, and I don't know, it was kind of back and forth between my team and his, just because I think that they're really similar in the way that they ended, and actually in the way that they begun. I think that he got off to a pretty slow start, shined really well in the middle, and then kind of ended poorly, in my opinion, which is exactly what I have to say about myself, which I'll get to in a little bit. But ultimately, I did put him over a little bit, just because at the end it came down a little bit more to unfortunate misses the Sleep Powder, whereas on my match it was just kind of bad plays at the end. But the Tapu Koko unfortunately didn't get to shine as much as I would like to see it do. HP Fire worked really well. I think he was running HP Fire this week, and it worked well on the Galvantula switch-in. But I think that HP Ice would have been more appropriate just for the Salamence and maybe catching the Dugtrios switch-in. It worked out for him because it did take down the Galvantula, but I just think HP Ice would have been a little bit smarter of a bring, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
I don't know what was going on with the Mega Venusaur set. I don't know. I guess, did you not have Giga Drain would be my question, because it could have taken on the Mamoswine because it gets stick bat. So I don't know. Whenever it came out, I think a Giga Drain probably would have 1 or 2 shot it. Instead, he had only Sludge Bombs to hit it with, and it actually could have. I don't know if it would have made a difference in the end result of the game, but it definitely could have changed differential up a bit. I like seeing the Golisopod set. It was almost like I actually thought there was a small chance that Honor snuck into the locker room of the Florida Fennekins and scouted out that Salamence set, because this Golisopod was designed to counter exactly what the Salamence was doing. It had Rock Tomb to stop the speed that he gets from Dragon Dance, and also Protect to
Protect, Rock Tomb,
for the fly. So it was really nice. Rock Tomb was really cool tech, I think. But
definitely a fun match.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that. Really, I think where he lost this match was bringing Ariados. And that's not to say that Ariados isn't a good bring, but it seemed like bringing Ariados was just 100% a waste of time and unnecessary if it wasn't going to be supported by other teammates like Alolan Marowak and... Well, I said and/or really I say and Flygon for, keeping up with the Hazard War. Flygon, I think, was his only defogger. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But, going against a team that has Galvantula, you have to expect Sticky Webs to beat it. And he brought no forms of hazard removal, as you mentioned earlier. So that kind of just cost him in the end. There's no real point in getting Sticky Webs up if you're going to let them set Sticky Webs too. At the very least, you bring yourself to an even playing field. And he was able to get rid of them in the form of Rapid Spin. So seeing that he has a Rapid Spinner, you might have considered bringing the Spin Blocker in Alolan Marowak, which is a 100% counter to Delmize, which would have been really cool to bring. But, I don't know, I just think, Sticky Webs could have worked this week if Alolan Marowak and Flygon were on the field too. But, unfortunately, I don't think that they worked super well against his team, so bringing Ariados was just kind of a waste of a mod, in my opinion. Yeah, he did pick up some new free agents that week, though, which is pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing how they do moving forward. Because I think that he did identify a lot of the weaknesses that existed in his team, so he is aware of the mistakes that he's making and the mistakes that he made in his drafts, so I look forward to seeing what he does as he continues to move on.
Now, at my number 7 and your number 8, we have the Winston Weaviles, who's Sketch.
That's me!
Don't tell me about your match.
Oh my god. I have a lot of issues with how I played this week. First of all, at the very beginning of the game, Raikou against Electros, I don't know what I was doing. I cringe every time I look at that replay. I really should have just switched to something else. I have that bolded
in my notes, don't worry. Oh,
okay. Yeah, we're gonna have a roast session on me real quick. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing with the Raikou. There wasn't like it was pretty clearly assault vested, and I guess I was just kind of nervous. For those of you who don't know, this is actually my very first league, and that was my debut match, so I kicked it off pretty terribly. But I don't know. I just dropped Raikou really easily, which was my Suicune check, which we'll see later in the match would have really come in handy because the Suicune was able to just sit there and like wall my whole team. For the life of me, I don't know why I looked at his team, saw 2 Levitate users, and didn't think to bring Mold Breaker on Druddigon, because I was carrying Earthquake that week. I just didn't have Mold Breaker to actually hit the Wheezing and the Electros for super effective coverage. Really, this came down to me 100% over-prepping for the Mega Lopunny, which never actually showed up, and that's going to affect me in several ways. One, that's the reason why I didn't have Mold Breaker. I brought Rough Skin instead because I put enough defense investments into Druddigon to take a couple of hits from the Lopunny, and like kind of like whittle it down. Like after Stealth Rocks, Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet, like it would have taken a lot of chip damage and would have been like really easy to take down for any of the mons on my team. Unfortunately, it wasn't there, so it was kind of a waste to actually have Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet. And like I said, like looking at his team, like after, for whatever reason, I was just like, oh, there's Wheezing and there's Electros, but he's not going to bring those, so let's just not worry about it. And I don't know why I was in that mindset. I think my Mega Aggron did its job well. It pressured the Goodra with the Ice Punch, and it actually did pick up a KO on Wheezing. Buzzwole, I have a huge issue with how I played Buzzwole this week. Again, I was in the mindset like, oh, Mega Lopunny's definitely gonna be here, so let me slap a Choice Scarf on it and run Jolly and like speed creep it so I can catch it off guard with like a superpower and just one-shot it. And I was thinking about it like after the match, and I was thinking like, in what world is he gonna leave a Lopunny in on a Buzzwole? Because like unless he was carrying, I don't know if like Mega Lopunny gets Aerial Ace, it might, but like unless he was like running that, there's not really anything a Mega Lopunny can do to actually one-shot a Buzzwole with base 139 defense. It wasn't really crucial for me to outspeed it because I could just take the hit and dish out more damage in return. And looking at the other things on his team that actually threatened out Buzzwole, that being Sylveon and Heatran, which conveniently were the 2 things that he had left at the end of the game, I could have ran enough speed investments to outspeed those and one-shot both of those with the right move coverage, especially if I ran Adamant over Jolly this week. Instead, what we end up seeing is I'm in a game of heads or tails, and this is why I didn't like rate myself super low this week, because like looking back on it, this was a match that I could have won if I made the right predictions. It just didn't end up going that week. And speaking of predictions, I don't know why I didn't switch out of my Lodic, because I actually did predict the Bloom Doom this week, and I was actually really expecting it in prep. And as he had Heatran in against my Lodic, I was thinking, this is gonna be Bloom Doom. This is when he's gonna use Bloom Doom. Like, you should switch out of here. I was like, nah, he doesn't have it. And I just like YOLO'd it and got one shot. And I was thinking about after the match, I had no reason not to switch back into Buzzwole, because he had no reason to stay in and go for like one of his fire type moves on my Lodic. That wouldn't have been smart. So like at the very like worst, he would have just switched into Sylveon. Like that was his play there 100% of the time if he wasn't carrying Bloom Doom. And Buzzwole could have taken the Bloom Doom, and at that point, like that's not to say that I would have won the match there, but I could have maybe tried to predict a switch into Sylveon and Poison Jab it, or I could have tried to predict that he stays in Superpower, and that's where it becomes more of like a heads or tails match. So I mean, it was a match that could have been won if I just played a little better at the beginning and the end. But I don't know, I just have a lot of issues. So that's my rant on myself. Moving forward, I definitely plan to use my team a lot more effectively. I did identify a lot of weaknesses.
I think you did it. Okay. I think you definitely brought it back at the end. Like I said, Raikou, had you kept Raikou alive, it would have dealt with Suicune better, which very much so walled your team.
Yeah.
Calm Mind, leftovers. It just completely walled you there. You had Haze, but Haze was a good play, but like it wasn't. You didn't have enough to hit it back.
Oh, and I actually meant to mention this. I actually have it in all caps in my notes, and I still somehow avoided it. I don't know why I didn't run Toxic on my Lodic this week. I actually brought Mirror Code instead, which I believe I did reveal. It just wasn't doing enough. Huh?
I thought Mirror Code was cool.
Yeah, and you know, I brought Mirror Code because like back in the day I used to play UU with my Lodic on my team. That was back when it was still in UU in Gen 6. and it was actually like my Suicune counter because that was when the Crocune set was like super huge.
Yeah.
And they would be like fully invested in special attack, and I would just be able to hit it with a surprise mirror code. So I guess like for nostalgia purposes, that's why I brought it. And I actually did have Toxic on, but I ended up ditching it for Haze, and really I should have just ditched mirror code for Toxic, especially seeing that he didn't bring Rest. It would have changed the game a lot, I think.
For sure. Another thing that I have to comment is your team definitely needs a spinner or a dedicated defogger, because you have 2 defoggers, but they both have other roles they'd rather be filling.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think you had a great revenge killer in Buzzwole, and had you just played maybe a bit more aggressive, you didn't, because you had always had your back against the wall with his switches. So I think if you had just made more ballsy predictions and played more aggressive, you definitely could have brought it back even more.
Yeah, and I think that was just the case at the end. But it's all good. I'm in love with Buzzwole right now, though. Like, Buzzwole put in the work this week, picking up 3 kills.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Like, be on the lookout for that. He's about to be like offensive MVP this season. I'm calling it.
All right. So number 6, shall we talk about yours or mine?
Yeah, let's talk about mine, because that was actually my opponent, that being Lupus in the Shining Suicune. So I'll start with Lupus.
Okay.
The reason I have him down, like, as you can see this week, and it's not going to be like this every week, but this week I think we both end up having, like, the people who won their matches are in the top 6, and the people who lost their matches are in the bottom 6. And that might switch up as we move on, but for this week that just happened to be the case. And I do have Lupus kind of towards the bottom of the people who won their matches. And that's only because, in my opinion, it was kind of conditional upon the mistakes that I made. Not so much in terms of the prep on his part. And that's not me trying to knock his prep, because he did play really well, and he's definitely deserving of the W that he got. However, given the amount of errors and misjudgments I made in like the different prep, like running Choice Scarf unnecessarily on Buzzwole, and playing wrong with the Raikou, it's just kind of hard to place him above some of the other teams that shined really well. And also, a 2-0 victory was one of like the smaller margins of victories, because I believe there were like 3 different 5-0 victories this week, so it's kind of difficult to place him over one of those teams. Looking at his team, like at individual mons, I think that the Heat Ran was really well played, but as Kurt mentioned in the draft analysis, he leans a lot on Heat Ran, and unfortunately I didn't identify that well enough, even though Kurt definitely just told me like, hey, watch out for the Heat Ran. Like, he gave me like the most obvious heads up, and I didn't really listen. But I do see that I believe Heat Ran is his only rock user, and it's also one of his Z users, and that doesn't really match well together. The Sylveon was used really well. The Weezing was a great bring because it 100% checks the Buzzwole. Like, there's literally nothing Buzzwole can do to Weezing, even if it really, really tried. Even if I knew he was bringing Weezing, there's nothing I could bring to stop it. The Gutra, although there was a critical hit on the Ice Punch, I don't think it mattered because it would have been a 2-hit KO anyway. Unfortunately, the Gutra's presence wasn't too significant this week. I don't understand why he brought Rock Slide, or why it was physical at all this week when Gudra has a higher special attack. I think that he could have carried Fire Blast for Aggron, and I assumed that the Rock Slide was to catch Crobat or Togekiss, but Thunderbolt would have been just as nice and probably hit for more damage. Yeah, that's really all I have to say in terms of like issues. He played fantastically, but like I said, like if I hadn't made as many mistakes, then this could have gone either way. So it's kind of hard to place him too much higher than that. But what do you think?
Yeah, I feel it. No, I definitely think he just played an overall solid game. He did miss T-Wave turn 1, but again, it was one of your mistakes that actually helped him out there, because I don't think he would have did what you did with Raikou if he hadn't missed it.
Right.
I loved the Suicune. Suicune was just fantastic this game. And you pivoted around so great, switching what you needed to be switched. With such a bulky team, you were prepped for everything. You had good wish support. You had 2 Levitate Mons that synergized well with Heatran. And you brought the Bloom Doom for the one thing that brought it down especially. And Lupus overall just played really good.
Yeah. So moving forward, at your number 6, and I actually don't remember where I ranked him, but I know it's one of my top teams, is King in the Florida Fennekins. So if you want to talk about him first.
You have him at 3, which is quite a gap.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty
So
significant gap.
the reason I have King, and I watched this game a lot, and I was like, I don't know what really to say. Because, like, Rapid Spin Delmise was really, really key in this game. You did have a few misplays. I would have gone into Dugtrio against Tapu Koko instead of Galvantula. Or even if you feared the HP Ice, Gardevoir would have taken both of those hits well and just hit him back even harder. There was an unfortunate Scald Burn, which did mean Dugtrio went down. But you preserved Gardevoir well. But ultimately it came down to a 1-0 just because he had such a bulky team. I will say you didn't have Power Whip on Delmise, and instead you ran Gyro Ball, which doesn't make total sense because Gyro Ball's power is based on speed, and you were running Sticky Webs. And you did use Fly against Golisopod, even though you had already seen it has Protect. But overall, I think the only reason I have him really this far down is because I didn't really like Honor's play, and he still got only a 1-0. What about you?
Was it a 1-0? I thought it was 2-0.
Why do you have him so high?
Was it 1-0?
It was a 1-0. Mammoth went down to life.
Oh, that's true.
There was life.
Alright, well, I think that the Mega Gardevoir was played really, really well. I think out of the Megas that were brought in week 1, Mega Gardevoir was preserved the best. It was only brought in when KO was just about guaranteed. I think it picked up 2 kills, and I don't think it ever really dropped down in health from what I remember, like past half, just because, I don't know, like it had like a lot of pressure. You only brought it in when he knew that he had no switch-ins and was about to guarantee a KO. Dugtrio could have put in a little bit more work if it didn't get burned, but that's just part of the game. Galvantula with the Sticky Webs was really nice. I think he caught your opponent slipping this week as he had no form to get rid of it, and you made sure to bring a Rapid Spin user to get rid of his webs, and I think that just kind of screwed him over this week. The reason I have him so high is just because he was able to, he was just able to keep the pressure. Like, I don't think there was any point in the game where King wasn't holding the momentum, and that can't be said for too many other people. Like, 99% of the game, King had the momentum just because of the sticky webs that he set up with. You mentioned that he didn't carry Power Whip. I could be wrong. I thought I saw him go for Power Whip earlier, and like that might explain why he went for the Anchor Shot twice at that one turn instead of just hitting with a Power Whip. If he wasn't running Power Whip, then I don't know why he wasn't. That's not really me trying to roast you, but just moving forward, I don't see the point of having 2 steel moves in Anchor Shot and Gyro Ball, because I think that's what he said you were running. I don't really remember too well. But other than that, you played fantastically, and I think that you're more than deserving of top 3 based on your performance in week 1. Alright, so moving to my number 5 spot, and your number 4 spot is actually you, Tsumami and the Seattle Salandit. So if you
Seattle
want to go
Salandit.
How you think you did this week?
Am I starting?
Yeah.
Alright, well, I didn't take too many notes on my prep, because I didn't want to be like, oh, look at me, I'm super special. I'm personally really proud of the Magic Coat, because I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
It didn't actually do much, but it threw him off, and that was cool. Like, I think I just kind of played well. Tailwind was good. It got me the kill on Cobalion. Destiny Bond on this Magius really helped get rid of the Quagsire, because otherwise I didn't have much to get through to it because of Sap Sipper on Drampa. And that's honestly it, because I didn't want to take much notes.
I did take a few notes. Like you said, Magic Coat was really cool to see, especially since you used it at a point where he had no defoggers left. You were able to just like leave permanent rocks on his side of the field for the rest of the game. I think that the Venusaur had really nice pressure after the growth setup. If the sun was still out, that could have been a potential sweep from what I remember. Unfortunately, the sun had gone away, but that could have been really cool to see. On Deontay, I believe it was mentioned in the chat during the game, always make sure to bring Moonblast over Dazzling Gleam. There's really never a reason to bring Dazzling Gleam instead.
Oh yeah, I did do that.
Doubles. The Haxorus was sacked off unnecessarily, in my opinion. I think that the game could have been won without it going down, and that's just something that everybody has to make sure that they watch out for. is how they play towards the end of the game. Like, what's the best way to save differential? Because it would really suck for you to make it to the end and end up getting screwed out of playoffs just because
Yeah, I feel it.
like a small turn like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Looking at the burn and the crit on Drampa, that's like a slight bit of hacks. I don't think it was too game changing. Like I said when we were
Had they
talking
gotten a
about
high
Rebel,
roll, Drampa would have gone down anyways.
yeah. I mean, like, arguably the hacks played a slight role in the victory, but like I said when we were talking about Rebel, I don't think that the outcome would have been too much different. Maybe differential might have changed slightly, but then again, like I said, like the hackers went down, so the differential wasn't too drastic anyway. But still, I can't really move you up until I see like a win with less errors and prep, such as like the Moonblast and.
Don't worry,
less
week
hacks.
2 you don't see a win.
Oh, spoilers. But
Bad dude.
Alright, so moving to my number 4, we have Articulus and the We Need a Name team. I actually think you should just leave that as your team name.
No,
We Need a
Articulus, no.
Name.
I actually have him at number 2 because he was the prep against Jay, and I can't say much because it was all pretty straightforward. Wish, protect, pass, wish, pass, wish, pass. But here's another statistic. Wish pass alone, you healed 2,758, and then you healed an extra 450 from leftovers and from Moonlight Cresselia. So you probably healed the most in a game ever.
Yeah, ever in
That's just me.
Pokemon history.
But other than that, I don't have much to say. You built perfectly for your match. You executed it perfectly. You kept Kyurem in the back. You had Sub-Zero Slammer for Cresselia. And you sacked off Umbreon. Was it Umbreon? Umbreon. At just the right time to get in Kyurem for that little two kill streak there. And that's why I have you at number 2, because it's just a great game.
Yeah, it was actually a really cool game to see. I was talking trash on it earlier, and I will probably continue to do so because it just got so tiring to watch, and I had to go rewatch it. I think I rewatched it like 2 or 3 times just to take
I watched it 5 times
notes.
to make sure I had enough notes.
Yeah, like it's cool to see the first time. After you've already seen it once, it just becomes a little tedious to keep watching. But the reason I have him a little bit lower than Tsumami is I don't think that he actually brought the correct prep to take down the bulk that Jay brought on his team. I mean, of course, eventually he did, but making a team last, or like making a match last over 100 turns against a team that has a Stally Mega in Audino is pretty risky. I think that, I don't know why Gengar wasn't brought this week, because it checks both of Audino's stabs and threatens it out every single time. Although it does kind of go against the bulk theme of this match, since it's so frail. I think that if used properly, it could have made a huge dent in Jay's team. I can't really say that you had like really fantastic prep this week, because if you did, I think that the match would have been a lot shorter. That's not to say that you prepped poorly, because if you prepped poorly, then you wouldn't have won. And you did win with a significant differential. I believe this was one of the 5-0 matches, correct? But
With 3 5-0 matches, you gotta nitpick at anything.
Yeah. There was a nicely timed Sub-Zero Slammer from the Kyurem, which I really like to see. Carrying Trick on the choice specs with Cresselia was really cool also. It kind of shut down the Gligar, I believe, is what caught that. Umbreon was used fantastically, and Landorus had really great pressure. Keeping the Tapu Fini alive was really nice also. Like, that thing would not die. I believe there were a couple times where it was close to dying, but like the leftovers just like fully healed it. It did a great job taking the hits, pressuring him with Scald Burns. I don't remember if he actually got Scald Burns throughout the game, but I mean, Audino had Heal Bell anyway, even if it did. It did stay alive, and it did get rid of hazards, which was really nice. I think that Articulus is going to do really well this season. I'm looking forward to it, because he did go against a really tough team to actually outlast in the stall, and he managed to make it work, which is cool to see. Moving forward, now we make it to the top 3. So shout out to the teams that you see on your screen now. These are, in our opinion, the 3 best. which we've already talked about. Yeah, we've talked about the Florida Fennekins, correct?
So for mine, I have Tracer and the Marachi Marshadow. Now, you played really well. You had great prep. Your team not only had switch-ins for what Kurt brought, but those switch-ins actually scared out what he had too. And you only had to make one sack, and you knew when to do it. Rotom came in, and you knew that, hey, this has done all it can do. I'm better off letting it go. You kept Stealth Rocks up, which were good to find Zoroark. Serena grabbed you a lot of momentum, getting both Rapid Spins off and U-turn. I don't think I would have scalded the Rotom Freeze with Jellicent, because type matchup, it wasn't there. He did end up going for a Will-O-Wisp, which was good for you, but I think, looking at it, I don't think I would have made that play. But Jellicent was really good, was a really good wall. Recovering, taking down Zoroark. Aerodactyl, I think, even though it only came in once, it was fantastic. The Fire Fang was great coverage for his team, and it only came out once, but it exerted so much offensive pressure, and you preserved your Mons well. At the beginning, you had Nidoqueen to get up rocks, but you still knew to keep it alive because you knew it could do a lot more damage later, and that it did. It kind of swept him.
Yeah, Tracer played phenomenally, and there's really, I don't have too many notes for him at all. Definitely no criticisms in the way that he played this week. And it's funny as I'm thinking, I believe I didn't have many notes to say about Kurt either, his opponent. I just think this is like probably the most straightforward game to look at. There weren't too many things that I could say about the match other than Tracer did really well, and unfortunately Kurt wasn't able to take on his team very well. Yeah, sorry Kurt. But Fire Fang on the Mega Aerodactyl was really nice, and like you said, just having the Mega Aerodactyl there just creates so much pressure for the other team, because it has like sky-high attack and speed. Like, you want to try to take a thing out early because it has really great sweeping potential late game. Weavile and Infernape were both there, which is really cool. I think this might have been, I could be wrong on this, but I think this might have been the only team to bring both of their Z users, or one of the few teams to do it, I'll say, so that I'm not like lying to anyone. So that way you never really know what to expect when one of these is on the field. Nidoqueen, being the current offensive MVP, I believe, picked up, I think, 4 KOs this week? I might be wrong on that. And Serena did a great job keeping the hazards off the field. There really isn't too much to say. I definitely think that he's deserving one of the top spots on the list, and obviously you think the same.
Yeah.
But
I think this is the only one we agree on, and that's the Ship and the Birmingham Blisseys.
Yeah.
You want to take this one?
Sure, I would be honored. Alright, so yeah, we both agreed first place is the Birmingham Blisseys. I think that he is more than deserving. I think that Kieran Black put in the most work of any mon this week. Just kidding. Kieran Black actually never touched the field this week. Slight criticism on the Mega Slowbro. I think that the Flamethrower was revealed a little too early. I think that there could have been a time where he just brought in the, or like when you knew for a fact that he'd be switching into Scizor, or maybe like when he thought that he could stay in and like perhaps set up on the Slowbro, you could have revealed the Flamethrower then. Not that it mattered too much because he did really well this week anyway. Clefable did his job perfectly as the bulky cleric. Snorlax played really well as an offensive and defensive threat at the same time. And I think that's kind of the theme of his entire team this week, was just offensive and defensive threats. Like, everything that he brought this week did well for both. That being Kieran Black, Mega Slowbro, Clefable, Snorlax, Decidueye, and Drapion all have really great offensive and defensive potential. Drapion getting that one layer of Toxic Spikes up was really, really, I'm not gonna say crucial, but it just gave him like a lot of momentum. You know, it kind of threatened out his mons, forced him to like switch around a little bit, which is kind of like, it's a terrible thing. Like, whenever you have like Toxic Spikes out, it makes you want to switch more, but then you just end up getting more things poisoned. But I think that you really took advantage of the fact that he didn't have a heal bell user that week, and he also didn't bring defog, which again, like I mentioned earlier, I think he should have brought defog or some form of hazard removal. But yeah, you definitely caught your opponent slipping. But this was probably one of the most impressive showcases this week, with a solid 5-0 victory for the Birmingham Blisseys. I think that Shiv's team isn't one I could give too much advice to after watching the first week. And as much as I'd like to give advice for him moving forward, all I can really say is keep doing what you're doing, and you'll find yourself towards the top of the list regularly, I believe.
Yeah, Shiv is definitely my number one this week. I think I'm gonna disagree that the Pocket Spike was really big in this match, just because how much chip it did. Rest Sleep Talk Fire Punch was an amazing set on Snorlax. It really caught him off guard. You got the Fire Punch at just the right time, and you have the best cleric in the game, which completely countered his team. You played so well. At first I was a bit thrown off when you sacked off Drapion, but I realized then you didn't even need it. A perfect example is just how you kept switching around the Mew. Even when it was roaring, you built a team in such a good way that you only needed the one layer of spikes to basically kill Mew. It did all the damage you need. Even when you had Kyurem roared in against 22% Mew, you still knew to preserve the differential and you switched out. You had such a pretty stall team. You had the perfect balance of, as you said, stall and damage potential. That was only 38 turns of stall. And it's probably the best 5-0 we've seen. I will say that, personally at least, that you played my 16th slot, so it'll be interesting to see how you do in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that just about wraps up our Week 1 power rankings. Finally.
Yeah, be sure to let us know, I guess, what you think. Again, like I said, don't take any criticisms that we say to heart. This is just kind of us giving our opinions on what we saw. And hopefully if you're unsatisfied with where you fell this week, you can prove us wrong moving forward. I look forward to seeing how all the teams do. This is just the first week out of 11, right? We're doing 11 weeks. So there's definitely room for this list to change up a lot. I don't really have too much else to say. Any closing thoughts on your end?
Yeah, no. I think on that note, we'll see you next week for the power rankings, and take it easy and win your matches.
Yeah, for sure. With that, has me, Sketch AB, and Tsunami Bars gonna get out. Peace!